Hello and welcome to the first Nissan Network News for 1987. And what a great start to the year it's been for Nissan Australia. Firstly, our total market share has now reached the magic 10% mark in January, with the Pintara Skyline outselling Toyota Corona. In the commercial market, we now have a very solid 12.5% share. On top of that, Skyline has been named Modern Motors Car of the Year, while the Pathfinder and the Navara have both picked up awards from 4x4 magazine. As well, the new Pulsar, due for release in Australia later in the year, has just been announced the Japanese Car of the Year. And now Nissan Australia is offering a full 2-year or 40,000 kilometre warranty for all imported and Australian-made vehicles. I'm Charles Slade and we'll be looking at those latest IDAPS figures and the award-winning Nissans in just a moment. But first, let's see what else is coming up in this March edition of Nissan Network News. We'll be talking with former GMH executive Ivan Devison, who joined Nissan Australia at the beginning of March as Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer. Mr Devison takes over from Mr Rye, who now becomes Chairman of the company. From the National Dealer of the Year Award dinner in Melbourne, this year's winner Philip Gilbert from New South Wales tells us what it is that makes him Nissan's top dealer. We take a close look at Nissan's 3 latest releases, the all-new Exa, the exciting Pathfinder and the improved Navara. From the Clayton factory, we report on the official opening of the new $14 million electrophoretic car painting plant by Industry Minister John Button. We join George Fury and Glenn Seaton, winners of the opening round of the Australian Touring Car Championships on the racetrack in New Zealand. And still in New Zealand, we check out the first shipment of Australian-built Skylines that have gone on sale through Nissan dealers there. Back in Australia, Queensland dealers start the year with a Revin 87 weekend seminar. And from the Melbourne Motor Show, a report on the Nissan stand which featured some of the most spectacular cars on display. A busy program coming up, so let's start straight away with the latest IDAPS figures for January. And they certainly prove that Nissan has made strong gains in both the passenger and commercial markets. Nissan's total market share is now 10%, or 9.96% to be exact, up from 8.54 in December, and the best figure since June 1985 when we did achieve 10%. In the commercial market, Nissan achieved 12.45 in January, while the all-important passenger car area, we got a 9.31% share with sales of 2,496 units. Nissan's total market has climbed steadily since July last year when it was at 7.30%. In August, it jumped to 8.78, then continued upwards in September to 9.84. In October, November and December, it was just under the 9% mark. Then in January, up again to 9.96. In the commercial market, this is how Nissan's share has grown. Back in July, it was 10.04 before increasing in August to an impressive 12.27%. In September, it eased to 11.42 and remained just under 10% in October and November. It was back over 10% in December before leaping to 12.45 in January. Nissan's passenger market share has also increased strongly since a low of 6.24 in July. It steadily increased through August to reach 9.29 in September. Dropping back a little in October and again in November and December, it was back up again to 9.31 in January. The latest IDAPS figures, which certainly prove that Nissan is on the move in 1987. And closely monitoring Nissan Australia's performance from now on will be our new Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, Mr Ivan Devison, who began officially with the company on the 1st of March. A former director with GMH, 53-year-old Ivan has had 32 years' experience in the automotive industry around the world. He originally joined General Motors Holdings Limited in 1955 as a manufacturing cadet, but eventually worked with various General Motors companies in America, South Africa, Denmark, Belgium and, of course, Australia. Ivan takes over as Managing Director from Mr Rye, who's been appointed Chairman of Nissan Australia. In announcing Ivan's appointment, Mr Rye said it had been a long-term plan of his to have an Australian as Chief Executive of the company. Mr Rye said it was further evidence of Nissan Japan's continued commitment to Australia. And Ivan Devison is the first to agree that he has joined Nissan Australia at an exciting and challenging time.
And there is a real feeling of confidence in the new company, and I must say that of all the early impressions I have, nothing is more impressive to me than Nissan people. I've been out to meet a few dealers, I've been to a few quality award events with dealers, I've met most of the key people here at Nissan Australia now, and Nissan people are feeling good about Nissan right now.
And all of them having come through the tough times, that must be good for them going into this new direction.
Yes, and believe me, there are still some tough times ahead for all of us. At Nissan Australia and its dealer organisation, as you well know, the market isn't good. Times are tough, but that's when people that are competitive get even tougher, and I'm very confident that we're going to match that demand.
In your time here, you've been talking a lot about commitment and Australianisation. Now, what exactly do you mean by that?
Well, by commitment, I'm really referring to the fact that in the discussions that I've had with the top people of Nissan in Australia and in Japan over many, many months now about their commitment to the Australian business, I can only tell you that in talking to maybe 15 or 20 of the top people, that I couldn't fault their commitment. And I know of plans they've got to add to our product, to add to our business strength, that is really a sign that they're prepared to put their money where their mouth is. And all I can tell you is I want the dealer organisation, I want the supplier organisation, I want the Nissan people to have the utmost confidence in the commitment of the company to Australia over the long haul. In terms of Australianisation, I'm delighted to be given a key role in a change of philosophy that Nissan has adopted for its 5 overseas manufacturing operations. We're in with a winning model in Tennessee in the United States, in which an American has created an American company building American products for the American market. It's now going to be a part of my job to lead Nissan Australia towards being a much more Australian company, building products for the Australian market with Australian management. And that, of course, as an Australian, is a very appealing challenge. But I'm going to need the support of everybody to make it happen.
What are your plans for your dealers, both the strong ones and the ones perhaps who haven't been performing?
Well, I've been deeply immersed in the subject in the very short time that I've been here, Charles, and I must say I'm impressed with the plans that are already underway, and I obviously will add my own commitment to making the Nissan dealer organisation a very strong chain, in which more and more the weak links will be identified and subjected to all sorts of all sorts of assistance from the organisation in the development of a better and more efficient performance. Those who want to be with us in that tough grind are very welcome. But those of us who treat us as a part-time franchise or as just a hobby horse or some sort of a supplementary income, I'd have to say those days are past. We're looking now for absolute commitment, and commitment to one thing above all, and that is customer satisfaction. The way to spell my name is customer satisfaction. And I'd like the dealer organisation to know that they're going to have my support in all the elements that go with that. And obviously product quality, parts availability, service training, many, many things make up customer satisfaction. But I also will, of course, be looking for the dealer principals who give their customer satisfaction responsibility #1 priority.
Well, in the broader picture then, summing all that up, how do you see the future of Nissan Australia?
Very exciting for me, given the fact that I'm convinced now about the commitment. I'm impressed with Nissan people. Everybody's impressed with Nissan product, with Nissan know-how. I've got to say I'm extremely optimistic. But obviously we've got some financial challenges. Our performance in '86 was not good. Our outlook for '87 is, to say the least, challenging. But I'm excited about it because I believe that there's going to be a shakeout and that Nissan's got what it takes to survive. I'd also have to say that I believe that product sharing is a very key part of our future and the future of the industry. I would be audacious enough to suggest that it's a non-negotiable part of the future of the Australian industry. And it's one that hasn't been focused on enough by the media or the industry people. That we've got to do a much better job of differentiating our products when we share them. We've got to do a much better job of marketing differentiation, so that we don't have a formula where 1 and 1 equals 1.5, but it equals 3. And I would really like to make an initial appeal to our dealer organisation to understand that we've all got to work harder at doing a better job of product sharing, because I don't believe there's any choice for the car industry of Australia.
And finally, Ivan, so your new troops can get used to you. How would you describe your style of management?
Well, I think the better people to ask, Charles, are the people that have worked with me over the years, but they may not be available for comment. Let me just say that I would see myself, if somebody was trying to describe me, as a very energetic person who likes to get out and about where the marketplace is and have a feel for what it's like at the point of sale. I'm a person who likes to touch base with operators as well as executives and get a feel for the real culture of a company or the problems of the people amongst the rank and file. I guess I'd say that I'm trying hard to be participative, but where there's an issue of a need for quick change, then I tend to become a little bit autonomous. But overall, I can say I'm very dedicated to the Australian car industry at large, and now I'm an extremely dedicated person to Nissan. I look forward to meeting dealer people in the future, and will be spending a dedicated part of my time in that direction. But I would ask them to be a little patient, because the country's a big country. We have a lot of dealers, and all I can say is I look forward to meeting each and every one of them.
Ivan Devison, Nissan Australia's new Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer. Well, now to the winner of Modern Motor Magazine's 1986 Car of the Year Award, the Nissan Skyline. Announced in Sydney in early February, the award is based on the votes of 48 leading Australian motoring journalists who clearly decided that the Skyline was the best of the more than 50 new cars released in Australia during 1986. Most of the writers praised the Nissan Skyline as being value for money, and at the final count, the Skyline scored a total of 182 points, well ahead of the Mercedes-Benz 300e with 115 and the Saab 9000 Turbo on 112. A week before the Car of the Year award, Nissan was named winner again, but this time twice, in 4x4 magazine's 1986 Industry Awards in Melbourne. The new Nissan Pathfinder won the Gold Award for the best new release under $25,000. The magazine described the Pathfinder as a superb all-round four-wheel drive fun machine. The Navara 4x4 picked up the magazine's Silver Award for the best utility workhorse. The judges said the Navara offered all the indestructible qualities demanded of a hard-working vehicle. Now, another winner, the new Pulsar. It's won the coveted Japanese Car of the Year award, winning from 45 new cars introduced by Japanese manufacturers between November 1985 and October 1986. Judged on such things as design, styling, performance, quality and price, the Pulsar scored 331 points, a clear leader from the Toyota Sora on 286 and the Mazda 929 on 269. The Honda City was fourth with 159 points. But back to the Australian Car of the Year, the Nissan Skyline. By taking out the Modern Motor Award, the Skyline, as the 1986 winner, joins a select group of cars. The Mitsubishi Magna won in 1985, the Mitsubishi Nimbus in 1984, Toyota Camry in 1983, and the Holden Camira in 1982. This year's Modern Motor Car of the Year lunch certainly had a sporting flavour. It was held in the club lounge of the Molly Dyer stand at the North Sydney Oval, where, out on the grass, the top 10 cars were lined up. The announcement for the Car of the Year was made by Barry Lake, editor of Modern Motor.
I'd just like to announce that the 1986 Modern Motor Car of the Year is the Nissan Skyline.
The award was then accepted by an obviously very proud Mr. Rai, chairman of Nissan Australia.
It will come as no surprise when I tell you that winning the Modern Motor Car of the Year means a great deal to my company. Awards such as this provide to boost to all Australian manufacturers, not just Nissan.
The formalities over, Barry Lake then explained how the Car of the Year is chosen.
The voting is open to anybody who is employed as a motoring journalist in Australia, and We provide them with a list of the contenders, although they would already know it because they've seen them released during the year and driven them. And a voting form. They have 20 points to allocate among 5 cars, a maximum of 10 points to any one car. So that the theory is that if they if they feel very strongly about a car, they can give it their maximum 10 points and give 1s and 2s to their backup.
And here's how those journalists voted their top 10 cars of 1986. The Toyota Supra was in 6th position with 47 points. The Toyota Corolla Twin Cam 4th with 108 points. Suzuki Swift GTI 9th on 23 points. Saab 9000 Turbo in number 3 spot with 112 points. The winning Nissan Skyline with 182 points. In 10th place, the Pintara with 22 points. The Mercedes-Benz 300e 2nd with 115 points. The sporty Mazda RX-7 Turbo only managed 7th spot and 41 points. Holden Commodore Turbo number 5 with 75 points. And finally, the Alfa Romeo 75 in 8th position with 26 points. Later, with the Nissan Skyline taking pride of place on the North Sydney Oval, Mr. Rye posed for photographs with Barry Lake and, of course, with that award. And in Melbourne the next day, there was another ceremony for Mr. Rye, this time for senior managers at the Nissan factory at Clayton. Mr. Rye handed over the Car of the Year award to Nissan's Deputy Managing Director, Mr. Kakashima, and Manufacturing Director, Peter Keane.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rye. On behalf of Mr. Kakashima and the 2,000 plus people at NMCA, we greatly appreciate this award. It's an award of 12 months hard work to get this Skyline up and running. And we're very proud of that vehicle, and we're very proud of the NMC operation, and we hope the public now will take notice that Nissan is a force to be reckoned with.
After the factory presentation, the award was taken over to the Design Centre, where it was put on display in the foyer as part of a Skyline celebration. A week before the Car of the Year award, Nissan was already a big winner in Melbourne at 4x4 Magazine's 1986 Industry Awards. First to win was the Navara 4x4, which picked up a silver award for the best utility workhorse. Then came gold for the new Pathfinder. It was voted the best new release under $25,000. The 4x4 awards came at an opportune time for Nissan, as we were able to promote them very heavily at the 4x4 show at Melbourne's exhibition buildings that week. Visitors to the Nissan stand were left in no doubt that when it comes to four-wheel drives, Nissan is indeed a winner. So 4 winning Nissans there, the Car of the Year Skyline, 2 four-wheel drive champions, the Pathfinder and Navara, and the Japanese Car of the Year, the new Pulsar. Another Nissan winner, also announced in February, is New South Wales Nissan dealer Philip Gilbert, the national quality dealer for 1986. Philip of Gilbert Nissan in Lakemba was chosen from the top state Nissan dealers who came to Melbourne for 2 days for the annual National Quality Dealer Award dinner. After meeting with senior Nissan executives on the first day, the dealers then attended a dealer council meeting the following day before the award presentation dinner at the Park Royal Hotel. The evening began with the presentation by Nissan Sales and Marketing Director Steve Markwell of the State Quality Dealer Awards. The South Australian winner was Grant Jarrett of Jarrett Nissan in Bridgewater. The dealership was completely destroyed in the 1983 bushfires, but was rebuilt and reopened the following year. The implied market share of the dealership in 1986 was 14.4%, and as further proof of his confidence in Nissan, Grant Jarrett races a Nissan Turbo Bluebird in the sports sedan class. West Australian winners were Alf Barbagallo, dealer principal, and Ray Black, general manager of Alf Barbagallo Nissan in Osborne Park, Perth. A Nissan dealer since 1985, The dealership was rebuilt last year at a cost of $1.8 million. The implied market share of Alf Barbagallo Nissan in 1986 was 12.8%. From Victoria, Gary McMillan of McLean's Tetoff in Preston was the state winner. In 1986, the dealership also won the Service Managers Award and the Most Cooperative Dealer Award. Implied 1986 market share was 11%. Philip Gilbert of Gilbert Nissan, Lakemba, picked up the New South Wales Award. His dealership retailed 26 more vehicles in its area than any competitive franchise, giving it an implied market share of 20.6%. From Queensland, the Parry brothers, Alan and John from Townsville, were the winners. They've been Nissan dealers for 7 years and have won previous awards for sales, service and parts programs. Their implied market share for 1986 was 11.6%. The state awards over, it was time for the National Dealer Award, won by Philip Gilbert and presented by Nissan Australia Chairman, Mr. Rye.
1986, I think, was a difficult year for all of us, and I just maintained the fact that if I could sell a car and make $1, we did the deal. And I think this now, in New South Wales, is rubbing off, and a lot of the other dealers are now becoming more aggressive. And I guess last year there was 3 things I wanted to do. Was win the Quality Dealer Award, sell more cars than Cole Crawford. Because the 2 years prior to that, Cole beat me by 1 car every year. But all of a sudden, with his beachside bargains, he's becoming very aggressive, and I'm starting to worry. And the 3rd thing was to sell more cars than our former state distributor. I haven't achieved that yet, but I have had we have had the odd weekend where we've managed to sell more cars than they have. I think I've got a lot of confidence in Nissan and where we're heading now. I think there's been a few rough patches, but we've got the products, and I'll certainly be working away because I'd love to be at the dinner next year. And thank you all very much. Well, and Nissan, Mr. Thank
you. The award dinner also gave an opportunity to Nissan's new Managing Director, Ivan Devison, to speak for the first time to the winning dealers.
It's so easy for me to stand up here and address a dealer group and promise you all the things that you'd like to hear. There's no way that that's my style, but I will be audacious enough to promise you support for the Dealer Council concept. I think it's the most important thing that the dealer organisation, the distributor organisation, has an effective voice in the business. And I do promise you that I will respect your viewpoint because you are, of course, to us, the customers. In return for that, there's no free lunch. There's a couple of things that I personally put very high value in. One is loyalty, and the other one is when you've got a complaint, you've got a big bitch, when things are not very good at all, let's see if we can't keep it private. I personally would like to tell you there isn't any way, as strong as I am, as egotistical as I am, as expressive as I am, and all the things that I am, there's no way I can go anywhere without you. And I'm here to make a very, very personal appeal for each and every one of you to be my friend, to be my supporter, and to help me. Because if we don't put this together as an Australian venture, Nissan's never going to have the confidence to do what they're doing right now. And I'd like to have each and every one of you help me.
Ivan Devison speaking there at the National Quality Dealer Award dinner in Melbourne. And it's time now to remind you of this year's National Dealer Principal Conference to be held in mid to late June. We can't tell you right now where it will be held, but I can say it will be in a very pleasant and warm part of Australia. We do suggest you go out and buy yourself some new bathers and check that you have enough suntan lotion. Noel Battelle says it will be an event to remember with an interesting mix of business and some pleasure. So much for the clues. Dealer principals will be receiving more details in writing in the next week or so. Until then, you're quite welcome to keep guessing where the conference will be held. In the meantime, it's up to all you dealers to get out there and keep the sales chart climbing, particularly the three latest Nissans released during February, the Exa, the Irvan and the Navara. The new Nissan Exa heralds the return of the traditional wind in the hair sports car to Australia and is the first true volume open-top sports car to be sold here for more than a decade.
Exit boredom. Enter exhilaration. Introducing all-new Nissan Exa, a new way to escape, courtesy of Nissan know-how. High-spirited, high-performance, twin-cam 16 valves, 5-speed, power steering. All-new Nissan Exa. Exhilarating.
Come alive, come and drive. Nissan know-how.
The all-new petrol Irvan with improved safety and driver comfort has been designed to take Nissan to market leadership in the large van segment.
This is a new generation Nissan Irvan. And compared with other cargo vans, the difference is enormous. More load space than Toyota Hiace. Bigger payload than Mitsubishi Express. More driver room and comfort than ever before. More power than any competitive van with unmatched safety features and a wide choice of models. All new Nissan Irvan. The difference is enormous.
Nissan know-how.
Finally, the third new Nissan for February, the 1987 Navara, which features a revised 2.4-litre petrol engine, giving it a more responsive mid-range performance. Payload has also been increased on some variants.
Nissan Navara was the top-selling 4x2 one-tonne truck of 1986. For 87, Navara moves further ahead, with even more responsive performance from this 2.4-litre petrol engine. And with more payload capacity on single and dual cabs, you can carry a jumbo-sized load. Nissan Navara, petrol or diesel, the breakthrough truck moves further ahead.
Come alive, come and drive.
Nissan know-how.
Well, they're the first three new Nissans for 1987. We trust by now you're familiar with all three vehicles and have had a good look at both the product knowledge videotapes and the selling guides for the Irvan and for the Exa. Well, Nissan has certainly proved itself a winner on the racetrack so far this year, with Skyline turbos winning the first two rounds of the Australian Touring Car Championships. In the first round at Calder International Raceway, Glenn Seaton finished the 60-lap race in first place, with George Fury third. Then the following weekend it was George's turn for victory at Symonds Plains in Tasmania. In that race, Glenn finished fourth. But for George Fury and Glenn Seaton, the 1987 race season really began with two races in New Zealand, starting with the Nissan Mobile 500 Group A touring car race in Wellington in late January.
Temperatures out there today.
Chased by the cream of Australian touring car races as well as the top men from Europe, George Fury put the Skyline in the #1 spot on the grid for the 142-lap race on the picturesque but demanding harbourside streets of Wellington. And as soon as the flag fell, it was Fury in front and stretching his lead on every lap, ahead of the pack of Jaguars, Commodores, BMWs and Turbo Fords. The Skyline was running hard and strong, and after 60 laps had left the rest of the 43-car field far behind in his mirrors. At that point, the Skyline was a clear 2.5 minutes ahead of the second-placed Works-backed Jaguar, with the other cars in the 500-kilometre race scraping for the minor places. But 7 laps later, and still with a comfortable 75-second cushion between the Skyline and the pack, the Nissan racer pulled into the pits with an overheating problem. A fan belt had snapped and cooked the engine. The Skyline's race was over, but not before demonstrating in the most convincing way that it had the pace and handling to outrun the rest of a high-class field. A week later, and the big Group A sedans were at Auckland and the Pukekohe Grand Prix circuit, again for a 500-kilometre endurance event. Even though it is a narrow, twisting track, it is better suited to big-engined cars. Despite that, the Skyline with George at the wheel lined up on the front row of the grid, alongside the eventual winner, Larry Perkins and the Commodore. The Skyline shadowed the Commodore for 144 laps and was about to take over the lead in the last 34 laps of the race when a head gasket blew and its race was run. But again, as it did at Wellington, the Skyline showed it was the car to beat in 1987. The racing Skyline with George Fury and Glenn Seaton in New Zealand. New Zealand, by the way, has already begun importing Australian-built Skylines. They were launched in late January to coincide with the opening round of the Kiwi Motor Racing Series. Annual sales of the Skylines in New Zealand are expected to be around 650 vehicles, and the first order and shipment was for 70. The sales are worth around $10 million to Nissan Australia, plus export credits to the value of $3.5 million. Nissan New Zealand is confident that the Skyline will capture at least 5% of the large car market. Australian-built Nissan Skylines now on sale in New Zealand. And here in Australia, all new Nissan vehicles, Australian-made and imported, now have a full 2-year or 40,000 kilometre warranty. The new warranty starts immediately and was announced last week by Managing Director Ivan Devison, who said it was a first for an Australian car manufacturer. He said it was a genuine factory-backed warranty, double that of any other manufacturer at present. Mr Devison made the announcement at the opening last Wednesday of Nissan Australia's new $14 million electrophoretic car painting plant at Clayton. The fully automated paint shop is the first in Australia to use a full-dip phosphate system, which is an important step in rust prevention. With a capacity of 34 cars an hour, the new paint shop was officially opened by Senator John Button, Federal Minister for Industry, Technology and Commerce. Senator Button was also taken on a tour of the plant, accompanied by senior Nissan executives and a large number of media representatives. In the new plant, vehicle bodies are taken from the adjoining main car assembly plant on an automatic conveyor system, which then takes them through a half-kilometre long tube where they undergo a series of spray and dip operations. In the pre-treatment section alone, there are 13 separate processes which wash, degrease and rinse each car body. After this, the bodies are then fully immersed in a phosphate solution, which etches the metal, allowing for a better paint adhesion. Then there's another rinse before they go into a drying oven. After that, they're electrocoat dipped in primer, rinsed and sprayed once more, before final baking for 30 minutes in the electrocoat bake oven. It is then that they're returned to the main plant on the conveyor system for undercoat and final painting. It was during the official opening ceremony just outside the plant that Ivan Devison announced that Nissan Australia would offer the best car warranty of any local manufacturer.
We are so confident of the quality and durability of our locally made vehicles that we are announcing that as from today, all of our Nissan vehicles, including those made here at Clayton, will be covered by a 2-year warranty period. This is not self-insurance by the customer, but a genuine factory-backed 2-year or 40,000 kilometre warranty. Another Nissan first.
Mr Devison also said the new paint plant was the latest in a long line of ultra-modern processes that Nissan Australia has introduced over the past few years.
It's also an answer to those sceptics who have put a question mark alongside the name of Nissan in Australia. It shows once again that Nissan is here to stay and is committed to this country. The appointment of an Australian Managing Director is another example of Nissan's intention to further Australianise the company. It is our objective to be recognised as an Australian company managed by Australians, building and selling products for Australia.
Later, inside the main assembly plant, there was another brief ceremony, this time to launch Nissan Australia's Australian-made campaign, which highlights the continuing quality of locally produced Nissan vehicles. And to start the campaign, Senator John Button put the first Nissan Australian-made sticker on the windscreen of a Skyline after it came off the line. So, Nissan Australia's new $14 million paint plant at Clayton. Well, Queensland dealers certainly got all revved up earlier this year for their top state Nissan dealer conference in Brisbane. Held over a weekend in January, the conference concentrated on the serious side of business, but it was not without its lighter moments. The new Hilton International Hotel in Brisbane was the venue on the 17th and 18th of January for the Top State Nissan Dealer Conference. First of all, on Saturday night, after an afternoon of Revin 87 work sessions, dealers joined their wives and friends for an evening of speeches, presentations, entertainment and fun. Among the guests were several executives from Nissan head office, and it was National Sales and Marketing Manager Steve Markwell who made the first presentation of the evening.
I have pleasure in announcing the Nissan Queensland State Dealer of the Year award to the Parry brothers from Townsville.
I'm very proud and honoured to be judged by our peers, really, to be the supreme dealer in Queensland. I firstly want to thank our people back at the dealership, particularly on our service and parts side. I think that we've probably got the most experienced people in that side, if not in Australia, certainly in Queensland.
People I'd like to thank, one's Paul Keating, one's the bank manager because he made us work hard, and one's Dennis Hoey because Dennis keep betting me and I like to beat Dennis Hoey. Thanks very much everybody, and thanks a lot. Thank you.
After the State Dealer Award came the 10 finalists in the Ira Burke Top State Supreme Award, the Nissan Knights.
Mr. Ken O'Shea, Nambour. Mr. Howard Robertson, Maryborough.
To announce what has become an institution in the Top State Nissan network, the winner from these finalists of the 86 Supreme Dealer Award, would you please welcome Mr. Dennis Hoey.
It's my pleasure to announce that the Ira Burke Supreme #1 Nissan dealer in Queensland, it's going to be a big time in the north again next week, is Parry Nissan Townsville.
The presentation's over. It was time to get on with the show. The floor show, that is.
Tonight, we reintroduce those nubile Nissans in a spectacular concours d'élégance, Merv. An overwhelmingly delectable combination of high-flying fashion and automotive excellence. We profile the individual cars, and together with a superb selection of South Queensland's finest tits and bums, we will present a story designed to send you all on your merry way, supremely confident with the Nissan vehicles at your disposal. So on with the show.
The evening certainly ended on a high note, but in the morning it was straight back to business for the dealers with a working breakfast. And to make it all just a little bit easier to digest, everyone was presented with a bottle of Sales Might, just to remind them of why they were there. There were also Sales Might coffee mugs, just to reinforce the message. After breakfast, the first of a day-long series of work sessions began, and it all started with a few home truths to make it perfectly clear to Queensland's Nissan dealers what the Revin 87 weekend was really all about.
That is our slice. I suggest we must have gone a little hungry. Nissan fifth, behind Mitsubishi. Now people even recognise the name Mitsubishi. Nissan fifth behind Mitsubishi. Where's the pride in that? Where's the profit in that? you don't get it in your heart, you'll never get it in your pocket.
So, Queensland dealers really revving in 87. Well, the annual Melbourne Motor Show was on last week, and once again the Nissan stand was one of the highlights. On display for the first time in Australia was the QX concept car, as well as a rather special Skyline Silhouette Turbo. Nissan claimed a prominent place at the recent Melbourne International Motor Show with a full range of its award-winning vehicles on display, as well as show specials, one from Japan, the other from Nissan's own people here in Australia. Pride of place, of course, went to the Skyline as the car of the year, as well as Nissan's other two title winners, the Navara, suitably dressed up for the big show, and the Pathfinder. And just to make sure that no one missed the point about Nissan's string of successes, the awards were there on show for everyone to see. But for out-and-out glamour, the Nissan QX from Japan was a real show stealer. The QX has been doing the rounds of the World Motor Shows since it was first shown in Japan in 1985, and telling everyone about the car's advanced features at the Melbourne show was an equally glamorous hostess. George Fury was an early visitor to the Nissan stand, spending quite some time talking with Nissan sales staff and the public. But I'm sure, like most others, he quickly made his way to see the special all-white Skyline Silhouette Turbo. The Silhouette Turbo is the work of the Nissan Special Vehicles division and features a deep spoiler at the front, a wing spoiler at the back, and specially styled lightweight wheels on low-profile tyres. It could be the shape of things to come from Nissan Australia. But the Silhouette Turbo and the QX were not the only eye-catchers on the stand. There was a Pulsar looking very smart in full dress-up kit, and the smartly styled and versatile Exa pop-top sports car. And still in the fast lane, the racing Skyline Turbo Coupe was there to boast of its 2 wins in 2 starts in this year's Australian Touring Car Championship Series. For solid, everyday, practical motoring, there was the Skyline Wagon, and for off-roaders, the Patrol Turbo. A very strong lineup indeed of Nissan product at the Melbourne Motor Show. The 1987 Melbourne Motor Show. And that's it for this edition of Nissan Network News. On behalf of everyone at Nissan, I'm sure you'll join me in welcoming Ivan Devison as Nissan Australia's new Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer. As he said earlier, it's an exciting and challenging time for Nissan Australia. I'm Charles Slade. Keep up the good work, and goodbye for now.